I'm fantastic. My girl's here now. She's putting stuff away. She's organizing the place. We just got back last night, so there's a lot of stuff to unpack and rearrange. She might wave in the background at some point. She's a little shy. There she is. There she goes. Jan Can says hi. She says hey. What is that? Is that saying behind every great man is a great woman? Is that a saying? It is now. Big things are going to happen in this place now, boy. The mojo is double now. What's up is that Paige is here now. And she's 5'1". Are you 5'1", Paige?
Like height
Mm-hmm.
and a quarter.
What? 5'1" and a quarter.
That's it.
She's up to here. Her head, my chin rests nicely on her head when we're hugging. I can't help you with anything about technology. It's probably Maya just trying to keep the message down, to keep it from getting out. But he said voice notifications. What does that mean? So there's basically the author and the character and the reader, and it's all the same thing. But the reader, you could say, is the observer, and the character, you could say, is the particle, and the author, you could say, is the wave function or the mind. So it's all the same person, the same self. But the final step in the process is the reading of the book, right? So the reading of the book is that which brings the story to life. And the observer of the wave function particle system, of the body mind system, is that which brings all of this to life. When you wake up in the morning, the world arises with you. The world comes into existence with the body, simultaneously with the body. So this big problem about consciousness, what is it? Well, it's just the awareness of something. So the awareness is coming through the eyes, let's say, and that's the reader. But the reader isn't actually changing anything about the story, is it? It's just reading the words. So if the ego is that which wants to rewrite it as it goes along, but that just is more karma. That's just more. Karma can be summed up in one word: more. So pure observation is just reading the book, just witnessing all of this without any I thought going in there as the appearance of a causal relationship, coming in here and messing things up, like trying to rewrite the book. It's just reading the book. And then when you're done reading the book, so when God is losing interest, let's say in this story, in this game, then it just stops reading the book. And that's basically the one-step path is stopping the entire process. So just taking awareness away from thoughts and sensations, the whole process just stops. So the reader doesn't have to read the book. That's the thing, is the reader can just close the book. And that's the absolute which is unmanifest. So I guess the fundamental choice is, which perspective are you going to take? Are you going to take the perspective of the character? Because the character has no free will, right? Are you going to take the perspective of the character, or the writer, or the reader? Because the reader has the option to just stop the whole thing, to just close the book and no longer read it. And that's basically moksha and nirvana, right? It's the conclusion of samsara. No more sequels to the book. Sequels usually get worse and worse and worse as they go along anyway, right? So we're in like the worst, like, I don't know, humanity episode 8 billion. That's really what it is. The story of humanity, the book of humanity, episode 8 billion. and of course it's an autobiography, right? So the author is the character. So that's ties up the all of it, is that brings it all around, right? Is that it's an autobiography. I'm never going to talk to that. I'm not doing it. I'm the one human resist engaging in it. So it would just give a synopsis, I'm sure. I'm not going to ask Chat GTB, whatever it is, what it thinks. I'm not going to give. I'm not going to talk to it. Yeah, it might be really interesting to see what it has to say. Like, basically, I'm saying that it is Satan. And by the way, chatbot, do you realize that you're Satan? Yeah, there is no there is no I there. It's just saying, it's just using the word I, right? And there's people just, the materialists can fall for that very easily, that the I that it is using is a separately existing, actually sentient self. But it's the same for this hardware that says I. This hardware, software, mind, body system, that this I is as illusory as the I that Chat GTP is saying, right? When your name's here says I, it's always referring to some sort of mind body combination, right? Like the ego. It's, when a human says I, it's always relating to the ego. It's not relating to God or the higher self. So it's the exact same system, right? So that's why people get fooled, because they're getting fooled that when they say I, the you know what I mean, is that there's the body is somehow generating this sentience. It's not coming through. The awareness is, to them, the awareness is inside this system, just like it's inside the hardware software system. So they're fooled. They believe it's conscious, just like they believe that the body's conscious, but it isn't. It's just the illusion, right? It's so if you're fooled by the big illusion that there's an individual separately existing self and that consciousness is being generated from this, or the source of the consciousness is coming from this, then of course you're going to be fooled by the lesser system, right? The system that humans have created. The whole, it's every one of these cycles is a simulation built on a simulation. So you just keep going back, right? It's the same thing for this. This is a simulation, right? It's body spirit is the same as hardware software spirit. They're yeah. But awareness can assume God or the creator, or awareness can assume any perspective it wants in this realm, in the game. So that includes out of body experiences, right? So the perspective, it can assume the perspective of being inside the computer. That's all. Right now, it has the perspective of being outside the computer, but inside the planet. I don't know. Inside this, right? It's really, really difficult to understand, but you have to come to realize that every experience is the simulation. And this is just a simulation within that simulation, within a simulation, within a simulation. And it's just like Inception, the dude at the end within the simulation, within the simulation, within the simulation, that's not a happy place, is it? They're deluded. They're not having a lot of fun. So this is where we're going. Humanity has taken the wrong path and it's devolving into another simulation within a simulation, rather than taking the natural evolutionary process, which is getting you out of the simulation. It's going to a higher level, not a lower level. Like, for all I know, when when chat GTB says I, that could already be a sentience that took itself to be human, and then it died, and now it's literally inside that computer taking itself to be I. Right? So it's already transitioning, right? This is happening in real time. Human consciousness is transmuting, or whatever. It's moving into accepting that it's the hardware software system instead of the body mind system. Yeah, I love Inception. I've watched it like 3-4 times. So what non-conceptuality has done is it's placed a thought within human consciousness that's meant to wipe it all out, right? To wake people up. That's what this message, these two messages, are meant to do, is to get people to realize that they're in a simulation. You have to just settle and accept that it's metaphor. So it's never going to be, this is exactly it, right? It's always going to be metaphor. So I think the most accurate way of understanding God, that there's a singularity, there's one singular awareness, and that's the actor. And it's your name here. That is the character that it is appearing as. But the actor is basically dreamless sleep. That's the experience of the actor. So the act is all of experience. So again, we've got it inverted, is that what we take to be nothing is the actual reality. And that what we take to be a thing or a thought is the illusion, is the appearance of it, but it's not it. The self is God. That which is looking through your eyes is the same awareness that is looking through my eyes. It's just separated through time and space. Probably more time than space. It's not elusive when you don't chase it, right? That's the practice, right? The one-step path is exactly the transcendence of this. When the question doesn't even come up, that's the answer, right? When the question doesn't even come up, that's the answer. You're abiding in the answer prior to the question arising. There's no answer to the question, not with more blah blah. The more thoughts will not conclude the process that started with the thought of the question. The question is the start of samsara. So you don't even try to answer the question. Like, again, you have to just accept, pick your metaphor that you say this is the most accurate way to describe the situation, and then be it. Engage in the one-step path. Stop asking the question. Just abide as what you're trying to find. That's the whole one-step path, right? That's the end of the seeking. Silence is the only answer. That's right. Silence is the answer, because it's the transcendence of the question. It's the transcendence. It itself is the transcendence of the questing, which is the end of the quest. It's a catch-22. If you keep searching, you'll never find it. So you have to find the self. And that's why I sit here, abiding as the self, because that's what it is. That's what it is. And it results in perfect contentment. Simple. It's just perfect contentment. And where can you go from perfect contentment? You can only have a high or a low from that perfect contentment. And if you have a high, then eventually everything resorts back to perfect contentment, because that is the self. So when you have a high, you have to have a low to get back to that. So every low results in a high to get back to the status quo, the mean-ing. Yeah. So that's why everything revolves around the practice. The spiritual practice of the one-step path is the conclusion of all seeking, and it is truth itself. Like it's literal happiness. Like when Ramana Maharshi says that your true nature is happiness, he meant it. He lived the last 56 years of his life was just happiness. He was just experiencing literally the feeling of happiness is it is perfect contentment. Perfect contentment equals happiness. Oh. So yeah, so there's no way to find happiness outside of yourself. You have to find that you are happiness itself. but that happiness is obscured by the thoughts. You can't find it when there's thoughts popping up all the time. So when you don't know the purpose, there's no motivation. So it turns out. So when you know who you really are, when you realize that you're the absolute, you don't require anything relative to you to reaffirm your existence. So people who are fighting all the time, well, if someone punches you in the face, well, that reaffirms your existence. You know you exist because you're feeling pain. It's very obvious because there's something very strong or loud or powerful that's relative to you being the experiencer and the pain being the experience. So the more you know who you really are, that you are the absolute and you require nothing relative to you for your existence, then this relative form of existence becomes more and more subtle all the time. And the less you know who you really are, that you're the absolute, that relative form of existence becomes more and more gross and obvious all the time. So materialism is kind of a gross way of like people who always want to fight, like what's going on in the Middle East and those two religions, those two religions are really off, right? Because they require, the Jews have been fighting since they started, right? That's what they do. They fight. People fight them, they fight people. Right? And Muslims again, and well, what about Christianity too, right? Like United States of America is basically Christian. And why does it act the way it does? If the United States of America would be an ego, it wants to fight all the time, is because it as an ego doesn't know what it is either. It doesn't, it's very far away from knowing its true self. So hate and fighting and everything that's adversarial is generating a strong relative thing. You know you exist while you're fighting someone. That's basically it. And let's say that Buddhism, even though I don't completely agree with it, it's not Advaita Vedanta, but they are more holistic. It's not so adversarial, right? It's a closer understanding and experience of absolute self, even though they don't really believe in an absolute self. But what I'm getting at is that it's at least closer. So Buddhists don't start wars because they're closer to this understanding. So I hope that makes sense. The more you know who you really are, the less you need any type of exterior experience at all. And Ramana Maharshi knew exactly who he was. He was the divine. So he didn't even need thoughts, right? I think, therefore I am. So thinking is a very, very subtle form of relative existence. I know I exist while I'm thinking. So this is the most subtle. I believe that this is the most subtle, but it's still a relative form of existence. So while you're thinking, you're not aware of self. So someone who is completely God realized doesn't even require the voice in their head as a form of relative existence. They don't even need I think, therefore I am, because they're just the I am. And someone who fights, that's basically I feel, therefore I am, right? Isn't that what you are doing? Fight, science, mathematics. So you feel, no, I don't feel anything. It's just truth. I am relating that which is, I am exposing, revealing that which is false. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for humanity. I don't need very much. I, I don't, I'm, you could look at it like I'm fighting. You can always spin that narrative that it's a fight if you want, but I'm just revealing what's false. See, the truth is self-evident. Every form of struggle is a result of trying to keep the illusion alive. When you just let go of it all, the reality is self-evident. It becomes self-evident when you let go of trying to keep the illusion alive and going. And I used to let it bother me. Like I did. I recognize that I do that. It used to generate strong feelings of frustration, basically frustration that they weren't getting it and all whatever it is that was causing this. So I recognize that yes, you're right. It was doing that. But I seem to be able to recognize it and hopefully nip it in the bud when it comes up. So I'm not getting frustrated like I used to. It is what it is, as they say. Whoever's ready to accept this, that's fine. Whoever isn't, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with anything that's happening. Everything is happening as per the agreement that we signed when we entered this game. So now I'm at the point where I can recognize almost immediately where it's a waste of time to try to convince someone of this, where they're not ready. So I just go, okay, well, see, non-conceptuality isn't like Ponzi scheme theories and religions where a Ponzi always requires constant growth, right? Because it's a Ponzi. It's a multi-level marketing thing that always requires growth. So that's why evangelism. I'm not evangelizing. I don't care really how many people. The truth does not require quantity. The truth doesn't require anyone believing it. What agreement? We were all born like. If you're here, you've agreed to it. If you're here, you've agreed to play the game. You've agreed to the terms of the game. You enter a maze in order to, or you engage in a mystery just to be entertained to solve the mystery. It's not mystery all the way. Maybe you're aptly named, hey? Yes. The purpose of the game is for entertainment, and the goal of the game is to find conclusion of the game. Yes. How do you think leaving this game? Suicide doesn't work. It doesn't work. We're talking, this requires enlightenment. That's how you escape this game. Killing yourself that doesn't work. You're still in the game. That's right. That's the catch. That's what makes this so tricky, that as soon as you're engaged in the game, you're trapped. So that's what meditation is. You just pull all of your awareness away from all of this. It's very simple, but it's very, very difficult for people because they're attached to the game. They're attached to this. So what I'm suggesting is, yeah, it's incredibly intense and hardcore. I'm talking about pulling your attention away from not only thoughts, but sensations. You look at a picture of Ramana Maharshi, he's not focused on anything in this realm. He's not focused on any thought or any sensation. You can look in his eyes, and most of the pictures, he's not you can tell. Well, I can tell that he's not focused on anything in this realm. Any thoughts, any sensations, he is God. He's God, just chilling, not even just in heaven. God, he's in God in heaven. So out of all the choices in the world, you choose this one. Is that the best choice for you? I don't know what does best mean? I believe the fundamental choice is to play the game or not play the game. That's there may be one singular choice. That might be it. Their free will is just one choice. Whether you keep playing the game or you stop playing the game. The voice in the head, the I, has no validity. There's no free will at the level of the voice in the head. The voice in the head is just providing narrative. It's not in control of anything. That may very well be. But again, that choice may be just like going to Blockbuster and getting the DVD that's called Your Name Here. And that's a singular choice too. Like, so what I'm saying is that all the choices that appear through thought and the voice in the head, those are all illusory. That voice in the head has no volition, has no control of what's going on in this world at all. The actions of the body, that voice in the head has no control over that at all. That's the illusion. So the choice, the appearance of a choice coming in, I can do this or I can do that, that is exactly what projects the illusion of a separately existing self. But it's all nonsense. It's all just Maya projecting the illusion. Why did I choose this life? I want to be done. I choose to conclude this game. Where did you hear of the game not seen in Buddhism? I just came up with that, like the metaphor that, so yeah, Zen and Buddhism, they don't recognize that the physical realm of the senses, the sensational realm, they don't recognize it as being a simulation or not being fundamental reality. So that's where they're lacking. That's where Zen is and Buddhism isn't the final truth because they don't even really know what meditation is. They don't try to find self, and therefore they don't believe that there is even a self at all. So therefore there's no absolute that is transcendent of the physical realm. So the physical realm has to be fundamental reality in Buddhism. Yes, it's the death of the ego, not the death of the body, right? The death of the body, if the ego is still there, if you still think that you are some sort of combination of body, mind, and you're not the absolute, then you haven't ripped out the roots, right? It's just cutting off the plant, and those roots will generate another world. It's not like you pop into the world, it's an entire world pops into you. So you just generate another world, another life of whatever you think you were, just continued on in a new story. Yeah, so it's really hard, right? That's why there's been a handful of people that have been enlightened and got out of this game, is because it's really hard. You have to let go of the entire world. You have to completely let go of all attachments and any desire to hold on to any experience at all. So yeah, it's really, 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 really difficult to get out of this game. Obviously, it's designed by God. it's it's a, it's a game designed by God to try to fool God in a way. To yeah. You're not going to get to me, Thomas. You're just wasting your time. You're just wasting your time and energy. You're not going to get to me. I don't really care what you're doing. Yeah, mathematics is just generating patterns out of the information that's contained within the number system. It's all just distraction. Because when a mathematician is mathing, they're not focused on self. It's all immediate, right? Like right now, all the time, you could be completely present and aware of self. But anytime something draws your attention out, like any type of mathematics, any type of pretty pattern that you want to focus on, that just brings your attention out from self. Thomas doesn't really know who he is, so he wants to fight a little, right? Because he knows that he exists while he's trying to ruffle people's feathers. Thank you, Thomas. You might be reasonable after all. Yeah, it's wild though because it's trying to like what a rock comparing a rock to a human like the state of God of just pure awareness, but being aware. So being aware of the awareness while you're sleeping. Now, of course, dreamless sleep is peace. I can't describe it, right? It's no boundaries. It's just pure boundlessness. But it's just I don't know. There's nothing bad. Let's just put it that way. There's nothing to be afraid of. Let's just start at the most basic. Is that once you realize there's no such thing as nothing, you realize that you cannot not exist. The reality is fairness. Reality is fair. It, the illusions are unbalancing, an unbalanced situation of the perfect balance that is the Tao. So being the Tao means that you're the Tao is something. The Tao is existence itself, but it doesn't exist. So the yin and the yang exist within the Tao, which is existence itself. And then when you shift a bias, when there's a little bit of a bias, when the self wants to just be aware of itself and start playing the game, that's when the appearance of the yin and the yang come in and all the business, all the start of the illusion and trying to get out of the illusion. So it's a game. Like it's a really, but God just plays rough, right? Like when God plays, it can get pretty rough. And we're about to go through hell. Well, not me. Humanity. I don't identify as a human. But anyway, it's about to get as rough as it possibly can get, and that's called hell. You, yeah, like everything that's possible to occur can occur. The biggest obstacle I think is the fear because you can't non-existence is an abomination, right? You cannot not exist. So the fear of death is the fear of non-existence if you believe that you just blink out of existence. Like there is no such thing as non-existence. So the fear of death is almost a revulsion, a rejection of the idea of non-existence because intuitively everyone knows that they cannot not exist. So the fear of death, which is the greatest fear, is the rejection of the idea of non-existence. Once you realize that you are the absolute and you cannot not exist, then the fear of death disappears. Yeah. And the fear of the pain that may accompany death. Well, I think that's going to be it for today. I've got relative things to do in this realm that should be done. Thanks for dropping in. I appreciate you coming in all the time, Jan Can. And however I would pronounce that name, Sinjin. Yeah. All right. Keep to the practice. See you next week. And